great. So we're recording now. This is Brother Wolf, HS 345, Healthcare Finance, and we're doing another case study 3. This is group 3, and then later, a little bit later tonight, actually, we'll be doing group 4. So you'll have 2 viewpoints or perspectives on this case. There can be multiple appropriate viewpoints. The important thing as a class is that everybody watches both recordings, and then as an individual class member, you might have come up with a third or a fourth way to do it. So what's important is that you demonstrate your understanding of the different perspectives and viewpoints on the discussion board, which is where I will post the recording just like I did last time, and then these groups will help moderate, ask questions, and those sorts of things. So with that, I will turn it over to the group, and I believe Erica will start when she's ready.
Okay, our case study is on the Rio Grande Medical Center. Just an overview, the Rio Grande Medical Center is a not-for-profit acute care hospital. It has 325 beds and is located in Rio Grande, Texas. A 100,000-foot section of the hospital is devoted to outpatient services, and it currently has 2 primary uses. 80% is used by the outpatient clinic, and the other 20% is used by the dialysis center. Recently, there has been a growth in volume of the outpatient clinic, and there is a need for 25% more space than is currently assigned. The outpatient clinic is much larger than the dialysis center, and patients that attend the outpatient clinic need access to other departments in the hospital. So the decision was made to keep the outpatient clinic at its current location and move the dialysis center to another location to free up space. The move would give the outpatient clinic 100,000 square feet, which is a 25% increase. It was soon determined that a new 20,000 square foot building must be built for the dialysis center. It would be situated 3 blocks from the hospital complex. This 20,000 square foot building allows for an increase in volume. With a new facility comes allocation changes, and this can affect the profitability. It is our job to determine a new indirect cost allocation scheme for outpatient services. So right now, the current allocation rates, this is before the big move. The facility's cost allocation was $15 per square foot. So for the dialysis center, it was $300,000, and for the outpatient clinic, it was $1,200,000. The current allocation for the general overhead is $270,000 for the dialysis center and $1,600,000 for the outpatient clinic. And below is the total overhead allocations, $570,000 and $2,800,000 for the outpatient clinic. These are just some new costs. These are the costs for the new dialysis center. For the construction of a new building, it would be $120 per square foot for a total cost of $2,400,000. They need to include land, furniture, and other fittings, plus relocation of equipment, and this will cost another $1,600,000 for a total cost of $4 million. Now it's Sharila's turn for question 1.
So after learning a little bit about Rio Grande's clinic, they wanted to increase the volume of the people that are allowed in the outpatient clinic, but making this is like as profitable as possible, they would have to move the dialysis center, which would incur costs of $4 million. So after reviewing our projected costs, our projected charts, statements, we got to the conclusion that most of these charges, especially the move, the $4 million total cost of this move, will be incurred by the dialysis center, which they would have to be responsible for that, assuming the 20-year loan and the different costs that come with it. So we believe that it is not fair for the dialysis center to incur in all these costs and assume all these charges because overall this move was based mainly on the volume of patients for the outpatient clinic. So I'm going to pass it over to the question 2.
Okay, so question 2 is mainly asking if the dialysis center should be charged the actual cost for the new. It wasn't even their fault that they had to move. They were forced out by the outpatient clinic. And we believe that they should not be charged the actual facility's cost for the new location because it was forced upon them. The hospital still owns the dialysis center, so the hospital could help with the cost of the facility. A lot of new costs are associated with the new facility. They aren't planning on receiving a higher volume of patients, and the costs of the new facility are going to go up. They have more costs, so they aren't going to be getting a higher revenue since they aren't getting a higher volume of patients. Because of this, it's not really fair for the clinic to get extra costs and not receive a higher revenue. They should, and when it was forced upon them. So, but we believe that the hospital should help out with the additional cost. Okay, question 3, I believe is Cameron.
Yep. All right, so even if the true cost concept were applied to the dialysis center, is the $400,000 annual allocation amount correct? After all, the building has a useful life that is probably significantly longer than 20 life of the loan used to determine the allocation amount. If the true cost concept is applied, what would be the allocation in the 21st year after the mortgage had been paid off? So, to answer the first part, the allocation amount probably isn't correct for a couple of reasons. One is that, like the question stated, the usable life of the building is a lot longer than 20 years. Also, it would be more fair to allocate some of the costs of the building to the outpatient clinic, which we'll show in a later slide. And then technically, after the mortgage is paid off, the allocation cost for the building would be $0 unless you're including like property taxes or something. But and then of course the normal overhead maintenance costs. And then who's going to take question 4? I can read it. The revenue that the dialysis center receives from patient use of the pharmacy appears to be passed on directly to the pharmacy. It's an annual revenue, but then it's for $800,000 for the drug use. Should this revenue be counted when overhead allocations are made? To make his point, I discovered that the pharmacy supplies used for the dialysis actually cost the pharmacy $400,000. So the pharmacy makes a profit of $400,000 on drugs that are by the dialysis center. So the booked $800,000 should be removed from the dialysis center and added toward the pharmacy. This would reduce overall costs by lowering the center's total revenue to $1.9 million and lower direct expenses to $1.3 million. This reflects a fair change. Cost allocation should be perceived as being fair by the parties involved, promote overall cost savings, and new indirect cost allocation scheme for outpatient services. This slide shows what we did, and we decided to allocate the cost based on the total square footage between both. So what we did here was divide the total cost of the two centers, which is $1.9 million, by the total square footage, which is 120,000 square feet. And that comes out to $15.83 per square foot. So if you charge that $15.83 for 20,000 square feet, that gives a cost of $316,000 to the dialysis center instead of $400,000, which saves a lot of money and allows the dialysis center to make a profit of $13,333. Those costs are transferred to the outpatient clinic, but it allows the yeah, like I said, the dialysis center to make a profit, which is important because being in charge of the dialysis clinic, your bonus at the end of the year is dependent on the profits that the center makes. And we felt that square footage was a fair way to do it. You can go to the next slide. Here we kind of explain what we did to allocate it by square footage. Kind of what I explained before. And then this last slide shows another way to do it, which is based on ability to pay. And ability to pay takes the revenue of each center, so the 2.7 million that the dialysis center makes, and divides it by the total of both the center's profits. And then we did the same thing with the outpatient clinic. And up here you see that about 12 cents to the dollar is what the dialysis clinic would need to pay, and about 88 cents to the dollar for the outpatient clinic. And this comes out to a lot more of the costs being transferred to the outpatient clinic. As you can see, it's now 1.6 and only 225,000 of the facility costs are charged to the dialysis, make a profit of 104,000. This could be a fair way as well. Instead of doing the square footage, we saw in the reading that some of the managers preferred this way. It's called the Marxist approach. So basing it on their ability to pay. Yeah.
Excellent. Very well done. So as we discussed, if you would, and I'm going to kind of reserve some of my questions for when the other group presents, and then when you both can post on the discussion board. So if you would please watch, or first of all, post your slides and any other material you think are useful. And then once the recording processes, I will post the recording. And you just moderate the discussion between the two groups, watch the other group's presentation and see what was different and comment on that, and direct the class if you would. Excellent job. Thank you. Any last minute thoughts or questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you too.
You too.